varietals and compare them to both new and old world wines that we've had. This is Terri from Cereal. She's graciously hosting us today. I'm Kacia, and I'm standing in for Matt Brain from Alpha Omega. And Neeta with LXV was the one who put this together, and Raymond from Indigene. We're all going for one single vineyard and a blend that will showcase each of our brands, but also the Bordeaux varietals themselves.
Yeah, and really celebrate downtown too. That was the idea of this collaboration, and just get our friends together and drink some great wine and learn a little bit. I'm looking forward to learning from all of you and tasting your wines.
Terri, did you describe downtown the way you did on the show?
Oh, yeah, so we call it the Downtown Wine District, and we were thinking we love maps, and so we're thinking of the 11 AVAs and districts, and so downtown is the 12th. So we've made it official. So we probably need to notify someone. In the meantime, we have made it official. Yeah.
So it's a district, not an appellation.
No,
Please don't ask me to define those.
So the way we are thinking about doing this is each one of us will present the varietal, which is in your classes. We'll talk about it, keep it interactive, ask us questions, and then...
All right, cheers, you guys. For the first one we're doing from Indigene, you have in your glass Indigene Petit Bordeaux. We wanted to describe the difference in left bank and right bank Bordeaux, and we started with this Petit Bordeaux because out of all the varietals, the Bordeaux varietal is kind of the one that is known for more blending and structure, adding structure to Bordeaux style wines, and then also adding color. So this is more the left bank style or representation thereof because of the soil compositions. The left bank is more of a calcium rich and lime rich soil, but with a gravel surface. So subsequently the vines have to struggle to get more water and makes the wines more concentrated, making Bordeaux varietals on the left side or left bank more big, riper fruit, but bright pitch notes, heavier wines, the more Eastern Bordeaux style, and wines that will age elegantly for years. We use this in the blend also that you're going to taste next, but I wanted to be able to get a big fruit forward and a stored wine out for you guys to taste by itself before. Any questions?
Are these dry farm?
Dry farm, no.
Where do you source your grapes?
Excuse me, please?
Where do you source your grapes?
This is called Paso fruit.
So is it all one vineyard, or is it a collection of vineyards? East side, west side?
No, this is just one vineyard. Yeah, it's one west side vineyard.
West side, okay.
Yeah, yeah. If you don't mind, I never tell the
that's
vineyard.
all
I don't put people's, yeah.
No, no.
Yeah.
It's on the west side.
Right.
Some people brag about G2.
I don't want to see that's what I
Yeah.
What's the alcohol on it?
It's 14.2. It's Mustard Creek. So I can give you the area where the vineyard is.
Okay,
thank you.
And what is the difference of the right mix, like the soil composition versus what
Well,
you described in the left?
It also has a rich amount of lime soil also, but it's a lot easier for the vines don't have to stress as much to get to water. Therefore, those style of wines that you'll taste next, and I don't want to overtake somebody else's, but the wines that you'll taste next from Indigene is a Bordeaux varietal. I mean, a Bordeaux blend, and it's more of a softer and approachable and more of a wine that you can drink now, where left bank wines are usually more, like I said, Eastern Bordeaux style that'll taste great now, but will age elegantly for years and turn into something more intense and more beautiful.
So I completely forgot that before we started
Speaking of beautiful,
I
we're
was
going to talk about right now.
yes, I was supposed to give a primer on Bordeaux, and just as Ray started talking about the batches, I forgot to talk about that. So let's deep dive a little bit. I just distributed that. I think we're missing a couple. Why Bordeaux? Right? Why are we doing this deep dive about Bordeaux? What relevance does that have to Paso Robles, right? A majority of the grapes, and the percentages vary depending upon who you ask, but more than 70% of the grapes grown in Paso Robles are Cabernet Sauvignon. A big percentage of that actually gets shipped off to Napa to make wines in Napa. So we are a bedrock of fantastic Cabernet Sauvignons, along with sort of an emerging interest in other varietal Bordeaux varietals like Cabernet Franc, Merlot. Mira does a fantastic exposition of how much, like 20 different Merlots from this area, and then Petit Verdot, and to some extent Malbec. But it was very important to start talking about the Bordeaux region, just to then have a deep dive of what that means for Paso Robles, especially from the agriculture point of view, also economy point of view. The sale of Cabernet Sauvignon in Paso Robles is increasing by double digits. It's the highest increase rate in the last decade compared to any other wine region in America. So that is something to be said about it. So if you think about the Bordeaux region, think about France, very west of France, that's Bordeaux. And there is the Gironde estuary, and that's why I have the map for you guys. There's the Gironde estuary that comes in, and it kind of flanks into two, or the Gironde river that flanks into two estuaries, the Dordogne and the Garonne. Melanie, you're not allowed to correct my pronunciation today. So, based on this, there are two kind of banks that are created. There's a left bank and there's a right bank. So you will see it on there. The left bank is where, as Ray was explaining, gravel soils. That's very interesting how the Dutch engineers back in the 1700s actually drained the marshes so that the gravel was exposed. It's very, very interesting. That's your left bank of Bordeaux. There is a lot of sort of that calcium-lead soils at the bottom and gravel on the top. The right bank of Bordeaux is where it's a combination of limestone and clay, very akin to many vineyards in Paso. It's very, very interesting. It's almost like a rolling thing, and there's a plateau and a fall. And that's where the famous regions of Saint-Emilion, Pomerol, that's the right bank. Left bank is where you hear about the powerhouses. Pauillac, the region of Pauillac, the region of Margaux, Saint-Joseph, like those are the right bank. Now within that, you've heard about the 5 famous chateaus. Haut-Brion, Chateau Margaux, Mouton Rothschild, Lafitte Rothschild, Latour, Chateau Latour. These were given a classification back in 1855 as the top 5. Actually, one of them got added later. Mouton Rothschild got added later. But these 5 have held sort of the dominance in the right bank since 1855. There's a lot of debate if it's right, it's wrong. Bordeaux is going through a huge economic adjustment right now when it comes to the wine. I'm sure you guys are meeting with Ray. It's very interesting. But why are we talking about the 5 chateaus? Because that's something to be said about the legacy, the way Bordeaux has been created. If you think about Burgundy, if you go to Burgundy, because of the way Napoleon and his laws were, they're literally like broken down into small vineyards. In Burgundy, there are places, no kidding, where a single person owns like a row of vineyards. Because of the way his law was to, every child gets equal parts of the parcel. Sounds fantastic, but then when you're talking about a vineyard, not always practical. Bordeaux, the thing is, because they were always a merchant area, the river, a lot of shipping, a lot of merchant-led thought, they said, no. That sounds all good and well. We will follow what Napoleon said, but we won't literally divide. We will take the estate and we'll give people shares. So the chateau, the estate stayed intact, which was important because you needed to stay intact for it to make sense. So Burgundy, very farmer-led, very soil-led, very viticulture-led. Bordeaux, very merchant-led. That's why they sell futures. Very commercial. So it's very, very interesting. And if you visit the 2 regions, that difference is so obvious. So that's sort of the context of Bordeaux as a wine region. If you talk about the big 5 that we talked about, they are called the first growths. 700, 800, 2,000, that's per bottle. There's always a debate. Is a wine worth that much? But the point is you're not paying for the content. There's a context there. There's a legacy, there's a heritage. Kunal, my husband, was at Chateau Margaux. He did a tasting with the winemaker of Chateau Margaux about a month and a half ago. They have every wine since the 1930s vintage, every wine in barrel or bottle. If you have a wine of Chateau Margaux that you have bought, and you know how you lose a little bit with aging, you can send in the bottle and they will refill off the same vintage. And I think every few years they do a few million bottles. It is insane. But that's the legacy we're talking about. You know, people say, why are the big five still the big five? Because the standards are insane. The viticulture standards are insane. The way they look at wine, the way they look at their culture is insane. That's the excitement of them saying, that's what's happening in Paso. There was an article as I was researching, because I didn't study for this, I was researching and somebody, and I forget, it's not Decanter, one of the magazines said, is Paso the next Bordeaux? And that's exciting, especially if you know Bordeaux now because of climate change, because of a little bit of a lowering demand for the high price wines, and the new generation who wants young, beautiful, quick to drink wines, cheaper wines. They have now, and the climate change is a big reason for it too, they have started incorporating new varietals. I think there's 6 new varietals that are now introduced into the region of Bordeaux. What does it sound like? Paso Robles. We are an area that does various varietals. Our microclimates are very dynamic. That's what today is about. You're going to taste microclimates across the board. And that's what we are about. We are about diverse microclimates and then kind of honing in on the best winemaking with that. So I think with climate change, with the different economies where Paso is heading, it's a fair comparison between Bordeaux and Paso. Maybe not 10 years ago, but today it feels like a fair comparison. So here we are celebrating the Bordeaux varietals of Paso Robles wineries across, I would say across the state, because we have Alpha Omega here, but really celebrating sort of, at the same time, celebrating the legacy of where it all began, keeping Bordeaux in our hearts, because that's really, at least for LXV, and I'm sure for you guys, that's kind of the mecca where it all started, and you cannot, it's almost like you have to have it in your heart as you do what you do. So yeah, any questions about Bordeaux? Yeah?
Be more passionate.
We are making wine in Bordeaux. We made wine in Bordeaux in Saint-Emilion this year. So super passionate about it.
I think that was Wine Spectator.
Was it Wine Spectator who said that? Are they the same ones who said that we have $50 tasting? Because we need to talk about that. That was enthusiast. That was enthusiast, I think. Any other questions for Ray's wine before we move on? All right, let's cheers, guys. And cheers to all of you for making it on a Sunday morning.
I think the next field trip needs to be Bordeaux.
Yes.
That's what we're going to do, yes.
That was my thought.
Yeah, that's all right.
Thank you for joining us. This is nice for us. All right, so our next wine that we are tasting, I actually pulled a barrel sample of Cabernet Franc. LXV, as most of you guys who know LXV know, Kunal carries Cabernet Franc in his heart. Hence, the first wine we made in Bordeaux was Saint-Emilion, because Cabernet Franc. Although it's going to be led by Merlot. He had a rude awakening when he got there. So this is 100% Cabernet Franc from a vineyard called G2 North. So Willow Creek appellation, the vineyard is somewhere between Closelin and Saxon. If you know where LXV vineyard is, it's just on the other side of the hill. If you've heard of the famous G2 vineyard, it's a sister vineyard to it. This is 100% new French Tonnellerie Bossuet. Tonnellerie Bossuet. It's interesting that the man, Jean-Claude Bossuet, He used to make staves. He was a very avid forester. He used to make staves for the same company called Darnachu that made barrels for Chateau de Trousse. So it's a very huge reputation on this cooperage. New French oak. So if you just stick your nose in the glass, and if anybody wants a little bit more, please let me know. If you stick your nose in the glass, you will have just a tuft of baking spices. It's a pillow of baking spices. That's coming from, of course, the French oak. This is a 2022. So the influence of the oak is going to be a little bit more proud at this point, but you'll also get blackberry. Like we were tasting this morning as a team, and we all were like, yes, blackberry. So with that tuft of baking spices and the blackberry, it's almost like a blackberry pie. And then you have notes of raspberry in there as well. So a lot of fresh fruit, a little bit of that baking spices showcasing the influence of the oak. On your palate, you feel the tannin because it's 2022. It's a new French oak, but it's very what I like to call a very respectful tannin. You know, it's going to resolve into a beautiful tannin over the next few years. But the fruit is just allow the tannin feeling to go and feel the fruit and get that juiciness on the fruit. Great acidity on it. Quick, a little bit of a shorter finish right now because it's a 2022. This is something that we will be releasing as a part of our new brand called Maison Mittal, and this will be released in 2025. 100% Cabernet Franc. We're doing a Cabernet Franc Cabernet Franc Day in December. So if you have any questions about that, I'll answer later. Do ask me. But yeah, enjoy this one. Let me know if you have any questions.
So you'll keep this barrel another year and a half?
No, at LXV, one of the things that we believe in is the way the Paso Terroir is. At some point, the merits of barrel aging kind of start plateauing. So, but if you keep it in the barrel and don't give it enough time in the bottle, it doesn't allow for bottle aging, which is as important as barrel aging. My guess is we are in December, August of next year. July, August of next year, we will bottle this and then keep it in bottle for at least 1 year before we release this. Now, if this were like a cooler climate Cabernet Franc, you would have had that jalapeno, that cuisine, that green bell pepper on the nose. If it was something from down San Ynez, which is also a beautiful expression of all Bordeaux. So.
And in the brandless glass is our Alpha Omega. So this is our 2019 Sleeping Lady Cabernet Sauvignon. Sleeping Lady is a vineyard that is located on the southern point of Yountville. And so it's kind of at the base of the Mayacamas, but it's southern enough that it gets the cool air from the Carneros region. And so it's warm enough for the whites, but cool enough for the reds. The Sleeping Lady vineyard is named for the silhouette of the hills around it. It creates a silhouette of a sleeping lady. And our 2019 vintage is a very ageable one. I would encourage everyone to imagine it in a few more years because it was a very cool, temperate growing year for Napa. There weren't any huge temperature spikes, didn't really get super hot, and so it was a very stressless harvest. But because of that, it is expressing more of kind of an ageable, cool climate wine. Matt Brang, winemaker, describes it as sunshiny, which I find very interesting for a cat. There are a lot of alluvial fans within the soil of the Sleeping Lady vineyard, and because of that, the grapes do produce these really concentrated tart berries. I'll give it a couple really good swirls, but it has these really fun notes on it that's almost like a hint of lavender. And then tastes as it opens up, going from kind of these really dark but solid notes to kind of caramel as it opens up. We made about 240 cases of it. 90% of it was barrel aged in a warm room to soften some of those tannins but not over extract the fruits. And then we aged it for 20 months in 60% new and 40% year-old barrels. And they're all fresh.
So the difference between Napa Cats and Paso Robles. No, there's so many different appellations in Napa. So
There-
you can, and cool climate, mountain.
There's
flat
so many
mountain,
different.
yes, and even here too, but
Well,
is there a general?
typically Paso is actually a little, it has more calcareous soil, whereas Napa is more gravelly. Napa does typically get a little bit more rainfall, and we are just closer to the coast. There are a little bit more drastic differences between the microclimates of Paso Robles than there are with Napa. The ones with Napa will kind of fold over into each other. But also when Napa started, it was more of a traditional single varietal, a Bordeaux style, a Burgundy style, whereas Paso was put on the map for more fruit forward and untraditional blends, kind of the Wild West.
We
And
call
so,
it Paso blends.
yes, the Paso blends. It's really delicate. But I do recommend aging this one. This one
Yes,
definitely
yes.
could use more time. But I can only imagine it in 5 years. So it is asleep. The sleepy lady is asleep. Hopefully she'll wake up soon.
Define exactly what a warm room is specifically.
Warm rooms. So the rooms are kept between like 88 and 94 degrees.
That warm? Wow.
The Cal Poly professor spoke to that. Did you talk about that? For those of you that we had an educational series here once a quarter, and he spoke to this exactly.
Yeah.
And like at Solosa, we've done some of that with some of our Pinots too that have come out of cooler regions. And so they've done some warm fermentation with those as well.
That is crazy. Okay, so 88 to what? To 88 to
88 to 94.
94. Man, oh man. That's interesting. Never heard of that.
If you think about fermentation, it's an exothermal process. So you'll be surprised, just fermentation in itself, even if you don't touch it,
Right.
the temperatures are very, very high.
Because they're bubbling and working.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's
Right.
it releases energy. So you'll be surprised, like just fermentation on its own is very, very warm
There's a
process.
chemical reaction going
Yeah.
on, and
Yeah.
it's just
And it releases
bubbling.
heat.
But like bread, you have a proofing oven, so it's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's very.
If any of you haven't seen it, Ray has a really good video, so those of you that might have not seen it, he's got a video right now of his process right now, the bubbles, I saw it. Yeah, he can show it to you afterwards.
Love that. Thank you.
I would love to.
Did you say after his bubbles? So I know this is a Bordeaux panel, but I say this very
Oh, bubbles.
passionately.
Yes.
It's some of the best bubbles that I've had from our area come from Indigene. He ages them for 48 months, which Kunal is very upset that I had a conversation with him because now we are aging it for 36 months and he's like, no more talking to Ray. But it's honestly it's so reminiscent of the best method champagne was. It's beautiful.
I love that.
Terri? Yes. So, I'm Terri, and so cereal, when we started this whole thing, we were talking about doing different Bordeaux varietals, and I had intended to do Malbec. However, our Malbec literally, over the period of a night, just was gone. It was literally gone. So I switched and I changed to our Adelaida Cabernet Sauvignon. And actually, I'm going to have Micah speak to that in just a moment. But the reason that I chose this particular Cabernet is because Adelaida on the west side did remind me a little bit of the descriptions that Ray and Neeta both talked about as the left bank. And I really love that map. It talks about the vibe of the wine, and that goes with the cereal. This particular wine does remind me of the left bank. It's a little bit more formal, so I think of it like that. But the other thing you were saying about Bordeaux being merchant-driven, you know, cereal is the reason we are cereal. It's not what some people think with the moth. It is a series of wines, and it's a series of wines from all the different Paso Robles AVAs, districts, and even some single vineyard designates. But it's also different varietals and different vintages. And when we think of the varietals, you know, you were saying you like to do all these different varietals in Paso Robles, but the consumer really wants Cabernet. The consumer always wants Cabernet. People come in, I'm a Cab person. And so what we're doing is a Cabernet from each of the different 11. And then we'll have to do a downtown one to add to that. But we actually have bunch of different single varietals capped in bottles now. But I definitely wanted to showcase this. I'm going to have Micah talk about the wine in your glass.
All right, so nice to meet y'all. So my name's Micah. So the Adelaide cab that you'll be trying, definitely softer, kind of silky tannins. Has an awesome nose. That Adelaide district, cold nights, and kind of some of the limestone in the soil, gonna make it give it a lot of like perfume right up on the nose. So this one, pure black fruit, tart black cherry, black currant. I kind of get a little bit of blackberry. The cool nights are also going to have the grapes retain a bit more acid. So kind of blackberries before they get a little too soft. And then, I don't know about you guys, but when it's tasting especially well like today, I get chocolate covered raisins. So, you guys like raisins? Yeah.
Like that.
Very nice.
Aged 22 months in 55-45 in French oak. So a lot of ageability going forward.
Did you say you're gonna make it downtown?
No, I'm teasing. Wouldn't that be?
Right up front.
Right out front, all right, in the barrels that we have that they put out at downtown. Actually,
We'll bring our own
that's
stuff.
not a bad idea. We should put it right.
Downtown collective.
Oh, I love it. You made it right here today. So we are going to pour the next round of wines.
You guys do one thing. Since we have a cab in your class, Terry was so sweet to actually get grapes from the vineyard. These are cab grapes. Smaller berries, very characteristic of Cabernet Sauvignon. If you guys could puncture the berry, see the seed inside. It's a fun thing to do. One of the things about everybody's talking about harvest right now and how harvest is really by this time we would have had harvest. So just squeeze and look at the seed. Can you guys do that for me, please? Look at the seed. It's green. So when we harvest grapes, there are three things that need to happen. One indication is the seed. The seed needs to be what we call lignified. It needs to be brown. But right now it's green. So means a little bit more time. And there's also that gelatin kind of thing that surrounds it that needs to separate out, but that's a different thing. Second thing is flavors. Flavors need to develop, which is also very important. And then we all hear about sugar, bricks. But the bricks is only one indication. Actually, the other two also have to happen. And it's the best way is to just taste. That's the best way. The bricks where we count the bricks on the spectrometer, that's just a sugar indication. It's not an indication of ripening. It's important to taste. The best way to taste it is take the skin, forget the flesh. The flesh is just water and sugar. We don't care about it. And like literally crush the skin and stick it on the top of your palate. That's the best way to taste it.
So why would it at first it turn brown? It's drying up.
It's not, it's ripening. It's ripening.
Brown by ripening.
Yes. And it's just one indication. You have to look at so many different factors before you pull. One of the biggest factors we have to consider is what is the next 2 weeks going to be. Sometimes you have to go in sooner because you have a heat spell coming, or you have a cold spell coming, or you have rain coming.
You have that huge 90-day hot and cold.
Yes, the diurnal shift. Yeah. No, so these are I think it's from the straight. No, the grapes are from the bitter.
So, I don't know how I got roped into this. So it's all separated in varietal character. Sorry, yeah. So it's all separated in varietal character, and it's all depending on the region also. Like microclimates dictate what wines are going to taste like in this area, and it's the same all over the world. Varietal character of Cabernet is going to be big fruit, higher acid, but then also tannin structure. So it's more mouthfeel driven, and it's more of a wine that you taste the fruit, and then right behind it you start to get the effect of mouthfeel, and that's what the tannins do. Where Merlots are more of a, not as much anthocyanin and not a mouthfeel driven wine. It's more velvety and more rounder and fruit forward flavor. So it's more of a rounder character. So in varietal character of every wine, it's dictated in a percentage, but it has a lot to do with the actual microclimates or areas where the wines are grown that are going to make wines different characters or different flavor profiles. And then guys like us get to be able to taste them and say, great, we could be able to change from Sangiovese with Malbec and Merlot to Sangiovese and just with Tannat because it has both of those flavors in it and you only have to use one wine. I just use that as an example because we're going to try that this year. But yeah, it's all about varietal character and then the actual microclimate or the region where it's grown. Any questions?
Very interesting.
Cheers.
Love it. Thank you.
All right.
So it's got all the five? All five of them in this blend?
No. This wasn't about the blend. This was just a question
Oh,
somebody
oh,
asked.
This is just a
sorry.
question somebody
Neeta came
asked.
strong arm me and made me come over here.
So philanthropist is that one, right?
All five.
It is Cab,
Okay.
Malbec, and Petit Bordeaux.
Oh.
And when you guys get ready, we'll talk about that. I don't want to.
Like that's a great.
We're going to go on to the blends, and this one's fun. I wanted to be able to do this and talk about this. This is a blend called the Philanthropist, and how we started this was I noticed my background in the wine business before I started this winery was wine bottling, which made me exposed to almost everybody in Paso Robles, because everybody needs bottling. And I learned a lot about winemaking. I learned a lot about vineyards, about what varietals do better where, and then just the whole Paso scene. And one of the first things I noticed is that the philanthropy part of Paso Robles and how these guys jump on being able to come up with monies for Boys and Girls Club or Battered Women's Shelter or whatever's around town. They take care of that first. I mean, it's always been a steadfast tradition in the wine industry since I came here. So the first blend I've ever made was called the Philanthropist. And this is the blend that we're having right now. This blend is 68 Cabernet, 20 Malbec, and then 12 Petit Bordeaux. We're able to manipulate this blend a lot because there's so many different microclimates in Paso Robles. We've got the fruit from a couple of different areas. This year, it's the West Side. The Cabernet has a West Side vineyard where we did a clone program for years. So this is Clone 4 Cabernet, which is known for more of a big fruit, but also tannic structure and mouthfeel. The Petit Bordeaux was from the same vineyard, and the Merlot was from that same vineyard also. So to give it more of a right bank style, we rounded it out, made it big bright fruit with Sangiovese yeast instead of the usual D254 or M45 yeast that people use, and to give that bright fruit. And then also we used the Pinot program from the Dallier barrel. So we rounded it out and made it softer with Burgundy barrels. Right, and then gave it that big round mouthfeel, a wine that's great now, but it will age, but this is attractive right now. And it's done in the same fashion as left bank Bordeauxs, but we manipulated it to make it a right bank, kind of big round, big fruit, and a great wine to taste with food or just have a glass every day. So cheers, you guys. Any questions?
Cheers.
Yes, we can talk about maintaining the strategy of how hot you want it and when it's hot house, like 85 to 90 degree rooms.
Yeah,
Is it
I've always been a cold fermentation guy. Not a cold fermentation guy, but I want it as much cold soaking as I can, and then the cooler 78 to 85 degree broken up cap 3 times a day, and add as much yeast holes as I can to kind of like keep the fermentation balanced.
So we did 3 weeks.
I try to get 3 weeks, but you can't get that. I'll get like right at 2 weeks, a week and 3/4.
Wow,
So,
really beautiful.
any other questions?
Are you pressing right in, you're press right in there,
We're, yeah, direct to press, yeah. Is that what you mean? Yeah. Yeah. We do a holster program and 75% of all the varietals. And that's just to be able to get as much stem as we can to kind of elevate the mouthfeel, the roundness, and phenolic structure.
Raised license plate is.
You mentioned that you cold soaked everything.
Yeah.
Is that just personal preference? Or?
Yeah, I try to extract as much color, you know, and as much natural. It's almost like starting out with a natural fermentation and then adding commercial yeast. You know, you get that varietal character and then everything about it for 2 or 3 days, and then you'll find a commercial yeast that drives it in a certain area. So, any
Very
questions?
nice, very, very nice.
So you don't actually put any SO2, you don't kill anything that's coming in from the vineyard. You let that natural yeast kind of go at it.
For 4 days, 3 days. We won't say kill anything. Yeah.
Dry visit, dry.
You get a lot of kind of particularly malobacteria that doesn't get destroyed.
Yeah, I've done some native fermentations, and you just ferment it and you watch it, and when it starts to get an off smell, then you'll use more like a driven yeast, like D254. You know, a yeast that's known to be a high fermenter. So I wish I could do everything native. You know, there's a bunch of Pinot vineyards that I bottled for and learned a lot about, and these guys have like big chambers where, you know, I was there and hanging out in the barrel rooms, and you'll see mold just dripping off of the walls, and I want to come in there and clean it off with a pressure washer, and really they're just making their own native yeast environments, isolated. So,
We could smell it.
Well,
Yeah.
if you see old cellars in Bordeaux, Burgundy,
the same way.
the walls are this thick,
Yeah.
this thick, over centuries, and they're soft.
Right.
Touch them, because that mold has been growing for centuries.
Yeah,
Centuries.
right. And it's this old isolated area with just
Exactly,
its natural
old,
environment.
Exactly, natural
Yeah.
environment, been there for centuries.
Yeah,
And you touch it,
yeah.
it's dry.
So you know, I sounded like an idiot when I went to come in there and pressure wash it.
Oh, yeah.
Clean it out. Yeah.
You've been there for 500 years. Don't
Right, right,
Not today.
Don't clean it.
yeah. So the philanthropist blend. Cheers, guys.
Really great.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Just sitting here listening to you. One of the things what I love about Ray is he is so humble, but he's such an amazingly intelligent winemaker. Like sometimes we have to remind him, you are fabulous, sir. Amazing. I've had your bubbles, you know how much I'm a fan of that, but this wine is fantastic. It's really amazing.
Great wine.
How do I follow that? Let's try. Any other questions for Rick? Moving on to the LXV, the secret. This is Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, and a little bit of Merlot as well. Led by Cabernet Sauvignon. This is Cab from a vineyard. So one of the things at LXV is we lead with terroir. We lead with the vineyards. Vineyards are extremely important to us. This is a vineyard called Gateway in Willow Creek. If you know the Terri Hope property, this is a continuation of the Terri Hope property. So it's literally undulating hills of limestone and clay, which is very interesting because limestone has this ability to heighten, brighten, so it gives a lot of structure, great acidity to the wine, and then the clay, it deepens, it darkens, it softens, it gives a lot of gravitas. So anytime we find a vineyard that has a combination with, if you've been to Armand Vineyard, which is our vineyard, it's kind of a combination of limestone and clay. So this is Cab Franc Merlot Petit Verdot. This, we did make this wine with sort of Pauillac in our hearts, if you know the region of Pauillac on the left bank of Bordeaux. There is a lot of power to this wine. There's a lot of structure, a lot of texture to this wine. We make wines very European style, so there's a lot of sort of kind of intelligence to them. These are wines that when you taste, you first get a sense of that red fruit, a little bit of black fruit, a little bit of that oak coming through. Then you taste it again, and then there's that mouthfeel, that great acidity. Then you taste it again, then there's that texture. There's those layers and layers and layers of this mouthfeel. The cab particularly was done in barrels from Darnaju, which is the same cooperage as Bordeauxs. And what's interesting about this barrel is it's very tight grained. So the exchange between the wine and the barrel is very integrated, it's very soft. So you have a wine that has a lot of complex character and structure, and then there is fruit. So with this wine, we really lead with structure and complexity, and then there is fruit to kind of back it up, and there's beautiful long finish to this wine. This is a wine that I think would sing with food. You want wines that have a revelation with every sip, because those are the ones that really sing with food. We made about 300 cases of this wine. So our entire production is about 4,000 cases. We are super small. And the hope is, this is a 2021. So with age, the hope and the thought is that the tannin will become a little bit softer, more integrated. The complexity will still remain, and then the fruit will transition from what it is, which is bright and has a lot of kind of power to it, to something that sits restfully with a little bit more of integration of blackberry and maybe picking up some tertiary notes of earth and tobacco in a couple of years. I'm almost waiting for that. When it picks up a few tertiaries, it will really complement this one beautifully. It's interesting tasting young wines because you're always kind of thinking 2 to 3 years ahead and what is going to happen to this wine. So if you can think about this and just take a second of when you have a cigar smoke or tobacco, because we all do, and just see how that would just sit on top of this wine. It would be beautiful.
So we're going to trust you to hold on to some bottles because the ones at my cellar don't last.
Yeah, I doubt the last in my cellar either. So.
That's one of the challenges of being a small winery is we sell out of wines before we feel they reach their prime. So all we can hope is people who buy them can allow them to reach their prime in their cellars. But we always keep a small lively selection on this.
So you're selling the 2021 now, but
Yes.
do you suggest keeping it until at least 2026?
Yeah, 3, 4, 5 years. Yeah.
At least, if not even longer.
Everyone, this is Knam.
But this wine is not officially released in the tasting room. It went into our wine club this month, and it'll get into the tasting room in the next couple of weeks.
Any thoughts about the wine? This is something that we paired for this club shipment with.
This one you made with smolder.
Did we do the smolder? So this was paired with Lapsang Souchong tea, which is the smoked tea from China, and it has sarsaparilla and
paprika, cumin, fennel. It has 20 different ingredients to the spice blend. Let me get it for this. And actually, in the tasting room, we're pairing with a different blend in 2 weeks, which is also a tea-based blend, but much more of an Indian interpretation. So it's an Indian chai blend, and actually has a red tea as part of that blend, and milk powder is part of the blend. So you don't think of dairy and wine together, but milk powder works. Let's have a check.
Really good, thank you.
Thank you.
Really good.
So, again, with the unlabeled glass, we are going to pour the Alpha Omega 2018 Era. Era is the first blend that we make with every vintage. It comes from the barrel selection of all of our single vineyards. With our single vineyards and our single AVA series, we look for the nuance of the year, of the terroir, but with Era, we are looking for consistency vintage to vintage. It's always cab-led. For 2018, it was 92% Cabernet Sauvignon, 5% Malbec. and then 3% Petit Bordeaux. It's the big, powerful portions of Bordeaux. But for 2018, it was a beautiful growing year for everything that Napa wanted, and very slightly warmer than what 2019 was, but again, no drastic spikes or anything. And so this one, to tone down the tannins with that, was 100% barrel fermented in a warm room. But because of that, these are a lot more ready to drink right out of the bottle. They don't need quite as much age as, say, the Sleeping Lady does. And Matt Brand described this wine as hedonistic. And when you smell it, when you taste it, it is lush. It is lush and it's decadent. It reminds me of a very fancy cigar lounge that I probably wouldn't be allowed into, but really want to, because I bet it smells amazing. And I do know that they did mix some of the Beckstoffer Tokalon, which got 100 points. That is in this wine, and this received 99 points from the Wine Advocate for 2018.
I missed that. What did you say? I'm sorry.
This received 99 points from the Wine Advocate, and there was Beckstoffer Tokalon, and our vintage of the 2018 Beckstoffer Tokalon received 100 points. But now we're not allowed to call that anymore. So they're like, nope, not again.
It was great.
Does everyone know about the Beckstoffer Tokalon vineyards? Do you guys know about that? So just in short, this is vineyards of fabulous reputation up in Napa Valley. Screaming Eagle, Harlan, these are the wineries that actually source from this vineyard, and it's an interesting kind of rift going on as to who's going to own the name. So it's going to be interesting what happens with that. But it is a vineyard of very, very high notoriety. Some of the best cabs that come out of Napa Valley source their grapes from Tokalon. Given the cost of the wine, probably I would be surprised if it's north of $20,000 a bottle. I would be surprised. Which, just to give you the context, the best vineyards in Paso, the absolute top vineyards in Paso, charge close to $8,000 now. The top vineyards, like the topmost vineyards in Paso, without naming names, close to 8,000, 7,000.
Yeah, so 7,800 is one that we are paying, and his sister vineyard is 8,200.
Yeah, so 8,000 is kind of where per ton is where the topmost is. I will be surprised if Tokalon is anything below 20,000. Has to be.
Oh, the Tokalon? 30 to 35,000.
Per ton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a
But if you use his name, then you gotta pay more.
More,
And
yes.
if you use the name, you probably got to pay
Of
more.
course.
If you put his name on the label, same rate,
Well, then first of all, you need specific permission. You need to taste. They will taste the wine and then give you permission. Not
They don't give you
so you don't give you
permission.
permission just because you buy fruit. So you have to submit the wine. They'll taste it and then say yes or no. So you can't pre-plan your marketing around it also.
But what an amazing thing to have Alpha Omega Collective here. Because, it's great to have brands like Alpha Omega, even Cyril for that matter, which has roots in Napa. Because we talk a lot about Bordeaux. Napa has had its own legacy. And the viticulture there and the winemaking there. It has its own beautiful culture as well. So when wineries come from Napa, companies come from Napa, it's fantastic because now we are having this great information exchange of how things are being done there, which has been world-renowned, world-recognized. So, there's a little bit of a philosophical perspective is let's embrace that, because it's only any time there is, and I'm saying that because I'm an immigrant, so anytime there is immigration, it's always like exactly, it's an assimilation for the better, always. So.
Remember, we all are. We all are.
And that just leads in perfectly to the whole idea of the diversity of the whole Paso terroir, like all of the different AVAs and districts and all these little places are so diverse, and I love the idea of diversity. So the reason I picked the Santa Margarita red blend is I'm kind of playing off of the same thing that Ray said. Was I was thinking we did the left bank with the single varietal, so why not look to the right bank? And I'm looking at, there's some Merlot and some Cab Franc in this wine. It has all 5 Bordeaux grapes, and And again, I'm gonna have Micah introduce it to you because he does this so well, and I would like for him to talk about that. Yes, go ahead.
So we got our Santa Margarita Ranch Red Blend. This has the big five Bordeaux varietals. Going to be 30% Cabernet Sauvignon, 30% Petit Bordeaux, 20% Merlot, 10% each of Cab Franc and Malbec. So Santa Margarita Ranch down south, kind of closer to San Luis Obispo. A lot of wind and a lot of rainfall, about 29 inches annually. So these grapes are going to be put under a lot of stress. I like it. It gets like some bright red fruit to the mid palate. We actually age it for only about 18 months compared to the Adelaide, which is 22 months. But it's going to last, like in bottle, you could sit it down for like 5 years longer just because it's a much more bold around the edges kind of wine. It's not going to get too flabby with time. So this one will sit for like 15 to 19 years. That Petit Bordeaux also adds a lot of tannins. I always say your gums are going to be saying hi to your lips a little bit on that one. It's not too aggressive though.
And the idea of the series is this is the first year that we have the Santa Margarita Red Blend, and it has, you know, those different varietals with that percentage. And so next year he may do something different. So the series will change over time. For example, one of our series, you know, he went with a different barrel type. We went from a neutral oak to a stainless with our Grenache Blanc. So we change either the winemaking technique or maybe the varietals. Something will always change in the series, or some of the series we try to make exactly the same so you can see how vintage will adjust. So it's just a fun play and a way to kind of geek out on wine, which I know some of you love to do. We like to get a little geeky here. So, questions? Cheers, guests. This is again, when Neeta mentioned food, this is one that I really like to bring out with barbecue. Yeah, anything grilled. Yeah, grilled vegetables. Thank you all.